If the two of you would be so kind, would you mind introducing yourselves?
Yeah, I'm Matt Eiseman.
Alex Huddleston.
And what is the band that you guys play for?
We play in Tithe out of Portland, Oregon.
And how do you describe the music of Tithe?
Hmm. Well, how would you describe the music Tithe, Alex?
I'd say with our more recent songs, it's kind of a mix of like death metal and black metal, some slight like grindcore influences. Um, yeah, we kind of throw like a ton of different influences into the blender, but I'd say that's kind of the direction everything leans into.
And would you say that the music, especially on this latest album, is mostly fast? Or do you feel like you mix it up between fast parts and slow parts?
I'd say it's mostly fast. We have some breakdowns, and definitely do some slower, more hypnotic stuff, which I really love doing. Like just kind of creating hypnotic riffs, but in general, it's pretty fast and a tad hyperactive.
uh, so would the two of you mind telling me how Tithe got together and what your intentions were at the time?
Well, I started Tithe with the drummer Kevin Swartz. Um, we had played in some other bands in the Bay Area, and it was happenstance that we both moved up to the Northwest at the same time. And the last band we were doing was a grind band, or somewhat grind, I guess, called Infinite Waste. And I just really wanted to kind of streamline what we were doing and not have it like so spazzy. And so I started writing riffs to try and make my hyperactivity like more attainable to people and more listenable. Yeah, that was kind of the original goal with the band, was just to like make something that was like all hooks. Like I really try and write like each riff to be a hook and have like that thing in it that's like you're like, oh, there's where it like cycles back around. And yeah, that was pretty much like the beginnings of Tithe.
And Alex, how did you get involved?
I met Matt at a show here in Portland at the Twilight, and my friend Michael introduced me to him, and yeah, we just started jamming, and yeah, they were looking for a bass player at the time, so that's how we met.
Matt, you mentioned coming more from a grindcore background and having this more spazzy style. Uh, when did you start incorporating the more black metal kind of riffs that you use on Tithe?
We kind of started doing that on this last album, or the one that's being released on February 17th, in Both Rapture. Uh, it's kind of a funny story, I guess, or I don't know if it's funny. But, anyways, I was out with my friends camping, doing dispersed camping, and we were all like really high on acid and just listening to metal. We didn't have like neighbors camping, so we weren't like bugging people's kids and stuff. So we were able to like just hang out all night until the sun came up. And we were just listening to a lot of black metal and death metal all night, pretty much metal for most of the night. And I just kind of, during my trip, I had this like epiphany, I guess, that I just wanted to kind of write darker sounding riffs and just take the stuff that I loved about black metal and death metal and try and incorporate it more into our newer stuff that we put on the latest album.
Was it a little bit of transition to adopt that playing style, that riff writing style?
Yeah, I mean, it's always been something I've messed around with a little bit, but I just spend more time with it. It's like the only way I can describe, like, it's just working with it and becoming more familiar with like kind of what to do with it.
Right on. You mentioned taking acid. I'm curious what role uh, hallucinogenics and psychedelics play in your writing process and how you come up with material.
Well, they don't really I don't write when I'm high on acid. It's a lot of times I honestly sometimes it's fun to like grab a guitar or something, but I generally enjoy listening to pieces that are already put together and just kind of like absorbing them. Um, but psychedelics definitely have been important in my life as far as my life experiences and like self reflection and yeah, I mean, the closest thing that like I could say that I'm not really a religious person, but the closest thing to a religious experience that for me is like listening to metal and, you know, taking psychedelics. It's a special thing. Music in general on psychedelics is a real neat experience, but there's something about metal that just really like strikes a chord. It's great.
And is that something that carries over into the lyrics for Tithe? Would you describe Tithe as either being psychedelic or having a psychotropic aspect to their music?
On our last album, Penance, I was exploring those themes a little bit more, but part of like my whole like revelation that I had was I didn't really want to incorporate that into Inverse Rapture. I yeah, the lyrics are kind of more about like just the shitty, evil things that people do and human nature. Human nature is kind of the theme of my lyrics a lot. But yeah, I wouldn't say that it's like a big part of what I'm trying to write about, psychedelics, but they are definitely a part of my life. And for whatever it's worth, like the music that we're making, and the lyrics that I write are kind of a reflection of my life and like what I think.
What about you, Alex? How do you feel about psychedelics?
Um, I've experimented to some degree. Never really like gone too far into like writing music after taking them, but it's definitely a bigger like kind of a part of an influence on my upbringing and into music in a way. Like I've gone on like psychedelic beach trips with past members of past bands, and yeah, it's always kind of been somewhat of an influence.
And how does a Tithe song start?
Like how like writing a song
Yeah,
like
like
that kind of.
does everything start with a riff for you? Do you find inspiration from things beyond psychedelics, like movies or anything like that?
Oh yeah, I mean a lot of stuff's beyond psychedelics, of course. Yeah, I mean the definitely. Usually I'll just try and find a riff that I think is like cool enough, where I'm like, that's a cool riff. And then from there, Kevin and I, the drummer, we get together um, a fair amount, and we'll just start kind of like working with whatever original idea I'll come up with and like bouncing stuff off back and forth. And it's like a long work in progress usually. And I hyperfixate on stuff. So I'll just be thinking about the song for, however long it takes. I'll be playing it and I'm like, oh. And a lot of the times, once I get the first riff, and it just depends. Sometimes the whole thing will like come out really easily, but a lot of times it's like I'll just be like, I know this is a good riff, and then I'll be stuck. Like, what am I gonna do next? Where's this gonna go? And I'll just like keep doing it. And a lot of times, like it's almost accidental. I'll find like the direction of the song. It's not fully intentional, but I'll just be down. I practice downstairs in the basement here, and yeah, I'll just by accident kind of like play something. I'll be like, that's it right there, and then kind of move forward from there. So
Yeah,
it's all it's there's no really like set way that I do it except like agonizing over it.
yeah. And you mentioned hooks. You mentioned you wanting Tithe to have more hooks than what you worked on previously. Uh, I guess let's start with what makes a riff hooky and what makes a good riff.
Well, I think a good riff, I mean, that's debatable. That's all, up to the listener and, your personal taste. But for me, I think what really makes the hook is there's always like some part of it where there's like some note or something. You can have a basic riff, but there's like some little like twist that you put in there that it's kind of hard to explain, but yeah, I guess it has this thing in it where you're like, and it's the way that it cycles back around with the timing.
Earworm.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah,
And Alex,
I'm gonna go shut the drape real quick because the cat's meowing.
no worries. Alex can take over. Alex, what stage are the songs at when you hear them? How complete are the songs?
Usually, or at least like the bones of it are written. Like Matt will come up with like at least probably the first half of like the guitar work, and Kevin will kind of have some like bare bones idea of what he's going to do for drums. And then usually at the point where I'm writing bass parts, the songs are like mostly complete. And I've always kind of worked that way with past bands I played in, just because that's how I kind of write. I like to have kind of the layout of the song written, and then I can kind of add fills and flair to it with different bass fills, and yeah, kind of spice it up.
Yeah,
So Matt,
Alex definitely adds his flavor though. It's great, like I really appreciate the way that Alex approaches the bass because he plays like a bass player, and thinks of where things that a bass player thinks about, compared to like say a guitar player that's playing bass. It's usually a lot different approach,
right? Can you expand on that? Because I think some people don't. The different styles of bass playing. There's like a classical bass style, and in metal you hear a lot of like, the bass is rhythm guitar or the bass doubling up a lot of what the guitars do, which isn't necessarily the role of the bass in other forms of music.
I've always kind of took like the Alex Webster approach, where
Right.
he says like 90% of the time you're kind of following the guitar rhythm, and then you have like 10% to kind of let your flair out and add like either do like a lead or a more like Philly kind of rhythmic part. Yeah, and I feel like that usually works pretty well with like more extreme metal music. I know like a lot more technical bands the bass player will definitely get a lot more um, extreme with it, but that's just never really been my style. I kind of stick to the roots first, and then I have my sections that I like to you know let my taste kind of come out a little bit.
And as far as the arrangements go, do the three of you work on the song structures together as a band, or Matt, do you mostly have your own idea of what you want the song to flow like?
it's definitely a group effort. It's kind of in the layers that we're talking about. Like, I'll usually like, kind of woodshed and come up with the original ideas, and then Kevin and I, the drummer, and I will bounce stuff back and forth, think that we've got something, and then throw half of it away. And it's a long process, and then Alex kind of comes in once we have like the structure mostly like nailed down, and then he has his inputs too, and he's had like great suggestions where he's like, oh, we should do this or that, and so it's a group effort, and it just kind of like it's a layered process that kind of like turns into the whole thing over time, with us all kind of working together. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely like not just me, it's not just Kevin, it's not just Alex, it's all of us kind of coming together and working it out together.
So past the riff writing stage, when you guys are putting the songs together, it sounds like they're really coming together in the rehearsal space.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
cool. So let's talk about this latest album. The second Tithe album is called Inverse Rapture, and it will be coming out through Profound Lore Records on February 17th of this year. When did you guys actually start working on the album?
Gosh, when did we start? About it, I guess.
I think we started writing the songs in 2020. Like, um, like I think like some of the songs were written even before Penance came out, or at least the bare bones of it were.
Yeah, it seemed like we had like half of it written, and then like we wrote the other half. Kind of like we set a recording date with our bud Fester who recorded us, and but at a certain point we're like, we got to write a bunch more songs, and just kind of like, really like focused on it, which is always good to put the fire under the pot, and start cooking, I guess. But yeah, it's been a process. I mean, we're kind of always writing with the band. I mean, we have a bunch of new songs written, for the next album, whenever that's going to come out. I'm assuming probably in a couple of years or from now. But yeah, we're always working on stuff, and that's the one of the things about putting out music. It takes so long. We recorded the album like over a year ago, and so we are working on new stuff, but which I would love to share that with everybody, but that's going to be down the road. But we'll consistently be working on stuff. At the point that we have our third album coming out, we'll probably have a bunch of stuff written for a fourth album too. It's kind of nonstop.
Let's talk about the style of the album. You mentioned wanting to incorporate more black metal style riffs. Would you say that's the major difference between this album and your previous album, Penance?
I mean, it has more black metal and more kind of death metal-y stuff. Although, like purist black metal people or purist death metal people, I'm sure would be like, oh, that's not like this or that. Or that's kind of been an ongoing, thing with like my style of writing. It's never like just one thing. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's hyperactivity, but I just kind of
Yeah.
bounce around.
Well, I think the truth is, even in the early days, these guys were never like one thing or another, right? Like they all came from like a thrash background or a grind background, or sometimes even like a hardcore background. And like what we think of as true death metal or whatever were a bunch of Kiss and Motorhead fans who decided to just play a lot faster.
Definitely,
Yeah,
yeah. Well, and I'm going to be 48 on Saturday, so I was around back when all that stuff was like coming out, and it seemed like there was back then. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but it felt like there was kind of a little more unity between like heavy music. It wasn't so splintered with all the genres. It seemed like people stuck together more with like, hey, you play heavy music, awesome, and I know the punks, fight with the metalheads and stuff, but it just, it's so like there's so many different genres nowadays. It's a different landscape than back then for sure. Well, I'm sorry, what was the question again? I forgot what the question
No,
was.
no. Let's. Yeah, I kind of took you guys on a tangent. Sorry about that. No, I'm just curious about how you approached this album compared to how you wrote songs for the previous album. We were talking a little bit about the way your guitar playing has changed a little bit.
Hmm. Oh, well, um, I switched guitars, which was kind of I've switched up stuff with tone just kind of over the years, and
Did you change your
uh,
tuning as well?
I did, yeah. It's we were tuned into like C sharp, or was it C
it was
flat?
C, but it was at
I forget.
430.
Like a weird. I was hanging out with our bud Matt that he tunes his band to 432, and you know we decided to do that, but it was a pain in the ass because like it would like try and play along with anything. It was out. It's like flat. It's like slightly flat, and so yeah, we tuned to B standard now, which that definitely, like, I think just B standard is like the ideal tuning in my humble opinion for like the style of music that we're doing in death metal. I think when you tune too low, like if you tune lower, it sounds great if you're doing like doom or whatever, but once you start going fast, it's like, especially in a live setting, it's like a wall of sound. You see the people going like playing their wrists, but you can't hear it. And so there's this, there's still enough mid range that's popping through when you're tuned to B. And yeah, that's just my humble opinion. I'm sure other people might disagree with that, but um, yeah. And so I mean, I guess the difference in like writing style is, I think that we kind of like took some of the like, there's less like kind of punk and grind influence in there. Um, and it's definitely more kind of Black and Death, but I don't know if that's really what we sound like either, honestly. I mean, I'm not like trying to really stick to any genre. It was just kind of what felt right
Yeah.
to
I mean, yeah, I mean, beyond genre, it does sound like this is a faster, maybe angrier record. I mean, you talked a lot about human nature influencing your writing. It does feel like there's a some gripes on this album. Was that the intention? Did you want to make an angrier record?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, it's for me, it's a cathartic release. It's just, I have to like get this stuff out. I don't know what I would do if I wasn't like playing music, I would be exploding. So it's great. I mean, it's been a really like positive thing in my life, but yeah, I'm just like, I'm basic. I would describe myself as a misanthrope. I do love my friends and I love people. I think there's a lot of people that are really amazing, and I'm constantly impressed by people and their abilities. But like as a whole, like the human race, it's just like we're headed to a bad place, and it's because of rampant greed and the greed is on an individual basis, and a bigger, the lead from the leaders down to human interaction. It's just a deep problem with people, from our like predatory nature. And I don't know, I just, shit keeps me up at night. That's what I write about.
I mean, is there an overarching theme to the album, or would you say it's just more of like these things that keep you up at night that you wanted to get off your chest?
I mean, I wasn't really like writing the album with the theme in mind, but like the theme of all of the songs basically is like the evil, fucked up things that people are capable of, from a personal level to a bigger level, from someone, you know, betraying you on a personal level to genocides
Right.
and, whatever it might be, like, uh, you know, technology, the advances in technology that could be used for good, they're also going to be used for warfare and manipulating people. And religion could be used for good, but it's also going to be used for the terrible things it's used for. Yeah, that's kind of the theme of the album, is just, the one song that kind of like deviates from that is the title track. And I wrote that about like uh, watching my mom die from Alzheimer's. And but that's like the only song, I guess, that's not really about those other things I was just talking about.
My condolences.
Thanks.
Uh, you mentioned Fester, the guy who recorded this album. Tell me about Fester.
Fester rules. We love Fester. Um,
And you've been working with him
yeah.
since your first release, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. He just, out of all the stuff I've recorded in my life, I love the way that Fester records our music, and he's really easy to work with. And he's an amazing musician himself. And yeah, he just does a great job. I really like working with Fester, and he's the man for sure.
He definitely knows the sounds we're going for, and knows how to dial in our tones just right and get the drum sound right. And yeah, it's always super easy working with him. It just feels comfortable.
What's the name of his studio? Is it Caravan?
We've recorded in Caravan before, and the last time we recorded in a couple different places. This last album that we did, what was the name of that place? Do you remember? I
Um,
can't remember.
I can't think. Yeah, I can't think of it off the
Yeah.
top of my head, but we actually recorded all the guitars and vocals in his bedroom, and
That's awesome.
yeah,
Which was a fun experience, you know. Like I generally like when we're recording, like I'm all business too, and so you know other than maybe smoking a little weed, you know, I was like, hey, I'm not, I want to like get done and professional. But when I did the vocals, I got hella drunk. It was crazy, blacked out by the time that we were done, and really well. It was a good idea. So that was like the one part of the recording process where I was just like slamming down booze and yeah, I just wanted to kind of be like loosened up because I had practiced everything so much. I had it basically as muscle memory, and I just kind of wanted to be relaxed about it, and you know, put a little personality in there. Hopefully that came through. I don't know if it did, but
How do you describe Fester's approach as a recording engineer?
um, it's hard to say. Like he's really easy to work with as far as just taking your like running through your parts. Like it feels super comfortable to like you just say running through a bass line. Like if I'm not nailing like the exact part on the time, like I can. He's super quick to correct stuff and um, jump into another part. And yeah, I mean, as far as like his approach, he's constantly like editing while we're recording at the same time. Like he'll be making small changes. Like you'll see him like flying on his computer.
yeah, he's almost like mixing it
Yeah,
while you're recording. And although he does like spend a separate time mixing it, he's like kind of getting the sound set while you're doing it, which is
yeah,
really cool. And another thing that's really great about working with him is we don't currently play with a click track. Kevin and I have been talking about maybe doing that on the next album, but we have to like kind of experiment with it and see if it like takes some of the human element, the feeling of you know, like the human air element out of it. So we don't know if we want to do that, but it was like with spaces where there's like you know, a break and the signature changes, and you're like, where do I come in? You know, because I can see if I'm playing live, I can see Kevin hit the drums, and I'm like, shh. But so Fester's like really good at like going in there and figuring out the timing and making a click track, which is pretty amazing too. He'll just do it on the fly. He'll like, oh, hold on, give me a second. And, like, and that's really impressive. I really like that about working with him too. It makes it a lot easier to like hit, you know, after a break.
yeah. Just those small changes he's able to make like on the fly is it's a huge game changer compared to like people I've recorded with in the past.
Mm. And another like thing that's great about Fester is he if you mention, hey, we want to sound kind of like this band in this recording, like he listens to enough music and knows metal enough to where he's like, all right, I got you. And it'll like turn some knobs. You're like, yeah, that's it right there.
Right on.
It's pretty cool.
I'm curious who those references were for this album. It sounds like there was a little bit of a second wave black metal thing, at least in the sound.
Oh yeah, you know, I mean, I'm not really sure like what we might have like told him that
Yeah.
it could sound like, honestly.
It was so long ago at this point. It's like,
Yeah.
I
Okay.
mean, we definitely like a more natural sound to our recordings. Like, we don't want like a ton of compression. I kind of like the openness, like where you can kind of each instrument has its own room to breathe. Um,
And that's
yeah,
important as a three-piece, right?
yeah, exactly.
Do you want to say anything about the gentleman who mastered the album?
Oh, you know, he mastered both of our Adams, or sorry, his name's Adam, both of our albums. Um, and he's great. I mean, I don't really like know that much about mastering. I know it's like a whole separate art. The only thing that I can say that I've noticed is like when you play our album back to back with like other professionally recorded things, it's like really loud, and it just sounds great. Like he definitely like adds that oomph to it. I wish I knew him more. I'd love to like talk him up more because I'm sure he's a great guy, but it's always just been like, a internet conversation of like, hey, can you do this? Like, yeah, buddy. And like, thank you. Thank you, but he does a great job for sure. 100%. And, like that's something I love, like all kinds of music. And, I really love like Zappa and stuff. And now like Zappa was like a recording master. And if you listen to Zappa's masters, like they're really loud and like present. And I feel like Adam, not to compare him to that or whatever, but like that's something I notice about Adam is that like his masters are very loud and present, and they're like really well done, from my humble perspective.
Was Adam Gonzalez, I should say, was he somebody that Fester knew, or was he somebody recommended by the label?
Uh, Fester recommended him.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Adam
He,
is
like, do stuff. If
uh,
like if the bands like aren't like being stubborn about like whatever they're doing, I think Fester recommends him. That's like who he likes to work with.
okay. And Adam is somebody in the Portland area.
I think so.
Yeah, I think his studio is Telegraph Studios.
Okay, cool.
I've never been there personally, but he's in the Portland area.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you guys have already started work on the third Tithe album. Do you want to give an inkling as to what people can expect from that one?
It's just kind of building on what we've been doing. We've just been refining our writing process the whole way. So I mean, I haven't really. I've written lyrics to one of the songs, but all the rest of them are just like song structures. So far, I have like 5 songs written, and I just feel like they're just like, in my humble opinion, they're getting better. Like the guitar work and the riffs are like better, and I'm more entertained, by it. It's like essentially, music's a weird thing because it's like you're writing it to perform in front of people, and of course you want people to like it and everything, but like essentially it's like for yourself. And so I've just been trying to write stuff that entertains me, um and entertains all of us, and that we're stoked on. Like we want to be stoked on it. And one of the things I've like always said, like since I started doing music, I kind of got a late start like with doing bands, but it's a whole nother story. But yeah, it's just to have fun. It should be fun, and that should be the ultimate goal.
Yeah, constantly challenging yourself. We're trying to like always trying to push ourselves on each of our individual instruments and like make everything kind of blend together better too. Like I think with the newer songs, we're continuing the more like aggression from Inverse Rapture and kind of building upon that, tightening everything up even more, and
Yeah.
just becoming more of a unit.
And that being said too, like definitely what Alex was saying, and I'm constantly like trying to push myself. And I know I talk with Kevin about this all the time, but like we're always writing stuff to where it's like a little bit beyond our abilities, And so I'm still, even with the newer stuff we've been writing, I'm trying to like fucking be able to play it. I always write stuff that's like a little bit beyond like what I can play. And then I like just practice enough to where I can do it. And so, yeah, it's challenging, but it's definitely listenable. But it's just the riffs are better. I don't know, they're getting better. I think I like them. I'm pretty stoked, and I really like Inverse Rapture a lot too. Like it's a great album, and I'm very proud of it. And I'm really excited about our new stuff too. It's just like music's great. It's like kind of one of the only things I like really think about a lot and care about. So it's just something that we've been focusing on and
Right on.
putting on.
Kevin isn't uh, around to take part in the interview, but we should mention that, or I should say that it sounds like he really pushed himself on this album, on Inverse Rapture.
Kevin is an amazing drummer. I feel so lucky to know him. And yeah, he I would say is the best musician in the band. Like he's an amazing guy. And yeah, he's just, a diligent musician and practices all the time. And I've known Kevin for over a decade, and I've seen him get better and better and better and better and better. And he's just still doing it. Yeah, Kevin rules.
And I know a lot of this stuff is out of your hands as far as record companies and manufacturing plants and stuff like that. But ideally, when would you want the third Tithe album to come out?
I mean, we really kind of want to do whatever is best for whoever we're working with. I mean, in my mind, I would put stuff out probably way more quickly than what would make sense to do. So we kind of trust, the people that we're working with and their judgment on these kinds of things.
Yeah, if we could probably be pumping stuff out every year, but
Yeah, that's probably not the best idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
But that's the pace that we ride at, though. Like we could do an album a year, but it's probably not a good idea.
right on. So by the time people hear this podcast, Inverse Rapture will be out through Profound Lore Records. Matt and Alex, what is the best way to order the album? How can people get it?
It's the final LP is available on Profound Lore's web store, and I believe CD and digital are available on Bandcamp.
And we have the album as well.
Yeah, we'll have the album at our shows. It'll be on our Bandcamp as well.
Yeah, but we encourage people buy it from Profound Lore because we're going to run out at our shows, and
Yeah. Did Profound Lore put out any variants for the vinyl?
Yeah, there's a black, a red, and then like a red, white, black splatter, I believe.
and a gold.
Oh yeah, the gold.
Yeah. Cool. And they look pretty cool.
And if people want to follow Tithe online, what's the best way to do that?
That would be at tithe.pdx on Instagram.
Cool. Do you guys have any shows or tours coming up that you want people to know about?
Yeah. I mean,
we have I believe it's February 18th in Oakland, California at Eli's. February 24th will be our hometown Portland album release at the High Water Mark. And we'll be playing Olympia the next night, February 25th at McCoy's.
Yeah, then we're doing another Portland show March 12th with a bunch of cool bands. That's going to be really sick. And what else? Oh yeah, we have like the May shows too, right? So yeah, we're going to be back in Oakland May. What was it? I have it written down here. Oh, let me grab it real quick. Sorry, we should have this for you already here. So okay, so we have also Santa Rosa May 26th, Sacramento May 27th, and Oakland May 28th. And then September 15th.
We're going to be doing an East Coast tour September 15th to September 30th. It's in the works, but not all the shows are solidified yet. But we'll be announcing on our Instagram as stuff comes together. So
yeah, we have a bunch of the dates like locked down, but we're still like working on some of them. It's pretty far out. So
cool. Do you know who you'll be playing with on that East Coast tour, the September one?
We our friend, the this is it Hierophant?
Yeah,
Our
Hierophant
friend
Hunting.
Adam Walker. Hey Adam, you rule. Adam that does Hierophant is helping us book that. So he was telling me like some of the we played a show just the other night that he booked for us, and he was like telling me the details, but I have a terrible memory, and I wish I could tell you.
No worries.
Adam's got it, and like he's been playing music for a long time, played in a lot of bands, and yeah, we'll keep everybody posted for sure on that.
Very cool. Is there anything else you guys want to say?
Yeah, just thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us, and we really appreciate it a lot.
Yeah. Check out Inverse Rapture, February 17th, Profound Lore Records.
Excellent. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you.